Hello, imaginary friends of the internet or the net. This is Frank coming to you from Italy and my favorite shopping mall and my favorite parking lot and my favorite car in a shitty rainy day. So today I wanted to talk about the COVID situation. What many people call the COVID situation. And just say what I think about it. Just to share this with you, but also for myself, because it's useful in these kind of very absurd periods of time to kind of make a recap every once in a while of what the hell was going on and what happened, how did I react to it, can I see the bigger picture here? And every once in a while it's just good. So you're not just being carried away by just the cascade of events. You're not in the middle of the hurricane. You're kind of standing back a little bit and you can see the bigger picture, kind of gather the information that you got and just form an opinion about it. So my view, being from Italy, and it's like many things happened the same way across many different countries, especially Western countries. So we can all relate to some of the things that happened. But then each country has their own politicians and politicians have their own agenda and their own kind of society, and the way people reacted is mildly different from country to country. And also, like, you can't, the information that is out, the amount of information that was thrown out there from the beginning of 2020 up until now is so huge and so bipolar that it's very hard to be like, oh, this is what happened in Germany and this is what happened in France, and it's very, very hard to discern the objective truth from just the opinion of the media or just people in general. So I'll try to speak as much as I can about my country and whatever I know about my country, or just the country that I live in. It's not mine. I don't give a shit. I'm just on a piece of land. So for those of you who are patriotic about their countries, good for you. I don't know. It's just, you just happen to be born there. That's it. It's just a piece of land. I like this piece of land. I like any piece of land where there's nice nature and animals and people and nice people to live with. So that's, I don't like deserts or the ocean. Not much to do for me there. So, what happened? End of 2019, I start to hear some news, and I remember vividly the first time I heard about coronavirus, or the Chinese virus, as it was called in the beginning. I was already working as a delivery guy, actually just starting, and I was in a restaurant, in a burger joint, and they had the TV on, and I saw this, and I never, just to put it out there, like the kind of guy that I am, I never cared about politics. I'm Italian. I'm young. I was born in an era where politics in Italy don't matter anymore. It's just all shit. There's like 1,000 parties. Everybody just thinks about money, and nobody ever took politicians seriously up until now. Because when people are scared, they just turn to politicians and the government for answers because they're scared. But when things are going all right, nobody gave a shit about politics here in Italy. The last time was historically, as far as I know, the last time there was some big movement about politics was in 2001 at the G8 in Genoa, where there was a bunch of stuff happened, and some people say it was organized. Of course, um, there are conspiracies about anything, and I tend to believe that side of things, like that most events in history that we think, especially recent history, that we think were just spontaneous and intentional and non-intentional, they were actually probably kind of organized or propagandized and instrumentalized to get something else out of it. But anyway, that was the last time probably that someone in Italy did something active about politics, as far as I know. But then, the whole thing, Berlusconi and all these people, it's just fucking clowns. So growing up, I was never interested in politics. I always looked at them on the TV and was like, oh, I don't care what they say. It doesn't affect me, And of course, being young, I didn't know that politics do affect you whether you want it or not. And I learned this the hard way with the COVID situation. Because you don't want certain things to happen, but when the politicians and whoever is in charge, when they want them to happen to you, they will happen, and because they have something called a police, and that's what they're for. But anyway, I digress. So I was in this burger joint and I was watching the television. I was speaking to my girlfriend, and I was like, "Oh, this is bullshit. This is bullshit," because I never believed the media either. Like, oh, I'm that guy that always complains when there's the media, when there's the news channel on. I always complain because it's so full of shit, and they always try to be overly dramatic, or the news don't make any sense. Like, they talk about some influencer's ass 1 second, and then the next second they're talking about wars and kids being exploding in mines, and it's just so weird and confusing. So I never took the media seriously as well. So I watched that and I was like, oh, this is bullshit. This is just, oh, the Chinese have a new virus. Like, whatever. It's just going to be like any other virus, like H1N1 or the swine flu and stuff like that. It's not going to be that big of a deal. They just do it because it's the media and they have to be overly dramatic about stuff. And this was in December 2019. And I remember my girlfriend and a friend of mine who studies kind of medicine and all this kind of stuff, they were like worried already. So they were like, oh, they're starting to saying that this is actually dangerous and it could get to Italy. And I was like, who gives a fuck, Because I would have never thought that whatever happened was going to happen. Because I never thought that the government would be able to lock everybody down just out of the blue. I was like, okay, if it does come and it's dangerous, we'll just be careful. Like, whatever, but I don't care, I'm young, and usually these things are just overly dramatic. And so I don't care. So January goes by, and then February comes, and the first case in Italy is discovered. And in January they had the whole campaign in Italy of hug a Chinese or an Asian, whatever kind of mildly racist campaign that they had. That they were like, oh, it's not the Chinese people's fault, because in the beginning everybody was just looking at Chinese people like, oh, you fucking scumbags, you brought this here, like the most ignorant shit that you can think. So some fucking liberal was like, no, just hug Chinese people, they're not dangerous or whatever. So they were trying to kind of already start to play this into politics. But I guess this wasn't the actual plan. And in February, the first few cases, actually near my town, were discovered, and they started putting those small towns in red zones. And I was like, something, this never happened before, as far as I know. But I still kept, I know it was coming to, everybody was like, okay, they're starting from one town and then they're spreading it around the other towns. This is just going to get to us and the whole region right? And then eventually all of Italy. So everybody was already kind of ready for the red zone to be kind of everywhere. But at the beginning, you have to remember in Italy, it was just those towns. Like all of the other regions in Italy, actually, during the whole first wave of COVID, like the only region in Italy that was actually influenced, that was hit by COVID, was just Lombardy, and most other regions were just fine. They had like just a few cases, in the course of months. But then you have the whole thing that they didn't have enough tests and blah blah blah. But it's like, if the other regions were actually as bad as Lombardy, you would have noticed. You don't need to actually collect data; you can just see it. But it wasn't. So us in Lombardy, we were like, okay, this is coming to all the region. But I could still go. I was trying, as my girlfriend and my friend already, they went to the home, and well, actually, my friend was from Sicily, and I stayed in my town. I was like, fuck it, I'm staying. I'm going to the gym, even if everybody is saying to not go, and even if I know they're closing it, I'm still going. And I went up until the last day. I was like, fucking, no masks, no everything, no anything. It was just like, okay, I can't go into a gym in my hometown. I'm just gonna go to another town and go to a gym there. And I think this is what happened with most people there. They just tried to escape the red zone as much as they could. And some of you might be thinking, oh, this is what actually started the spread. It's like, shut the fuck up. That's not it. It's just, any virus would just spread anyway. You can't fucking stop it. I didn't go into a gym sick, okay? If that's what you're wondering. So I wasn't sick. Most people weren't sick. So no, we weren't actually spreading the virus around, okay? But how do you know? I know, because when you're not sick, you're not sick, okay? Are you sick right now? No? Fine. Then you're good to go, okay? It's as simple as that. I know I'm going to get some shit for this if anybody ever listens. But remember, I'm just rambling. This is just what I think. It doesn't change your world. It doesn't change the world. I'm just a guy, okay? So eventually they closed everything down, and our prime minister on March 10th. So during the whole month of February, there was the whole thing about Bergamo being actually kind of starting to get a little bit overloaded in the hospitals, but the politicians ignored that. And all the health ministries and the health officials and stuff, they just ignored it. It was like, they were like, oh, this is just a flu, right? And it's like, these are the same experts that we keep listening to today, just telling us, no, it's just a flu. It doesn't, just be careful out there and just take some vitamins, whatever. And that should have been the end of it. But then on March 10th, our prime minister was like, everybody stay the fuck home now. Okay? And he said that at like 10 p.m. He was like, starting from tomorrow, everybody has to stay the fuck home, or you're gonna get arrested or fined, whatever. We're gonna kill you if you get out of your house. Thank you for your contribution. So my friend, who has her family in Sicily, she was one of the many people that just freaked the fuck out and was like, what? I can't just stay here. I have to go. So everybody just jumped on the first trains, the first ferries, the first airplanes even. I don't think airplanes were going already. I think they stopped those. So she just jumped on the first ferry that she could find, and she just got the fuck out of there. And thankfully, she got home so she could stay with her parents, because everybody was like, okay, this is not going to last 1 week. Okay? So everybody, even though they told us, everybody knew, like, there's no fucking way they're doing all this mess just for a couple weeks. Okay. So when the prime minister said that, he locked down, I think, just Lombardy and maybe some regions next to it. so Lombardy was a red zone. So it was like nobody can get in, nobody can get out starting from tomorrow. And the other regions were like, I don't remember if they were the same thing. Like, I don't remember if he put Italy all under lockdown. Yeah, I mean, everybody was locked down, but I think you could still move from some regions to other regions. Uh, oh, fuck, I don't remember, because it happened, all happened so quickly. Well, let's just say, for the sake of it, that all of Italy was locked down, because that's what happened anyway. So I never bought into that. Even at first, I was like, this is fucked up. This is so fucked up. And just like many of you, I was like, well, it's probably not going to last for long, because you can't just fucking lock people inside their homes and close everything down for months. Well, lo and behold, that actually happened. Many things that I never thought could happen actually happened. So this was just the first of many. So I never bought into the mask shit. I never bought into any of it starting from the beginning, because some people bought into it at first, and then when the months went by, they were like, this is starting to smell like shit. But, like I told you, I never trusted politicians. And for the first few months during the lockdown, I was interested in the data and the statistics because they made me interested. Because every fucking day at 6 p.m., the guy from the Civil Protection, whatever association, how you would call it, which is actually in charge of emergencies in Italy. The government is not in charge. When there's an emergency in Italy, the constitution says that the Civil Protection, that's what we call them, the Civil Protection is in charge of the emergency. So the Civil Protection guy comes on TV at 6 p.m. every day and tells us how many people are dying, how many cases there are, and that the situation is getting worse and worse and worse. And the media is showing pictures of people, of the same 4 fucking people on ventilators, and the government is saying that we need ventilators and blah, blah, blah. You know how the whole fucking thing went. So every day was just bombing us with, everybody was just watching TV and watching the news and just waiting for the prime minister to say something. And it's like, what else could you have done, So even somebody like me that didn't give a shit about politics is like, you have to give a shit because they're making you give a shit. So yeah, sometimes I was like, oh, these politicians are fucking everything up. People are dying and they're just not focusing on the right things. And that is what happened, probably, because politicians never give a fuck about health. They never did. Even if they told us that every day for months, they never did, especially in Italy. But just Western countries, except maybe, I don't know, Germany, those countries that are like actually wealthy. Even Americans, like any Americans listening, do you think your government gives a fuck about your health or ever did? You know they don't. Doesn't matter what virus you have, what pandemic you have today. They don't give a shit. They never did. Why would they start? It's like if an abusive father out of nowhere, started telling you that they cared about you. Would you believe them? Well, probably because you're psychologically abused. But, that is Stockholm syndrome. Somebody abuses you and then you believe that they care about you. Because you'll believe anything because they fucking kick the shit out of you whenever you didn't believe them. So now you're just forced into it or you'll just go fucking nuts. So I think that's what happened. Everyone knew it was bullshit, but some people were so scared about what the government could do that they just bought into it and they just never thought about it again. And they just bought into the narrative and they still buy into it today. And whatever the government says, that's the way we should do it. And the media is there to help give people, to help tell people what to think, basically, and what to say and what words to use and who to listen to and who to not listen to. And this is not conspiracy talk. This is just how the media always worked. Always. Since there was media ever. Since there was a news channel ever. This is, and the last I don't know, 20, especially the last 5 to 6 years since Trump got in office in America. Like all the movements in America, the social movements, and new words being used. It's like newspeak, okay? And it's like, oh, here we go with the 1984 references. But that book is fucking awesome. From a political and sociological point of view, like the analysis that you can do just by taking some parts of that book are fucking amazing, because that's just what happens when a government becomes authoritative and tyrannical. That's just how it always goes down. Like, it might look different, but it's always the same. New vocabulary is invented, and some words are canceled and they're never heard of again. And it is just bipolarism everywhere, just a very net division between people, usually just two groups of people, because it's easier. The human mind tends to divide things into black and white because it's easier for us that way. It's either this or that. I only have two choices, and they're the opposite of each other, so it's like I either go this way or that way. Our brain is not wired to actually sit there and figure out all the options in an objective way. There's just too much emotion and too much shit going on. So we just end up being like, and we are being guided by the media in doing this. It's like, you're either this or you're that. You can't be both. So you have to choose, and this is the good side. We're the good ones. Those ones are crazy. Those ones are bad. They're actually bad for the economy. They're bad for the environment. They're bad for they're just bad people, and they're killing everybody, and they're just going out there irresponsible. They're ignorant. They're stupid. They're ugly. They're whatever they need to tell you to make you believe their side. They will just shit on the other side as much as they can. And most of it is just subliminal language. Now, this is not fucking fairy tales, guys. This is just how communication and psychology works. Okay, these people are professionals. They studied their whole life how to manipulate somebody into believing something. Okay, the marketing campaigns that started from the 60s and 70s, the new method of marketing, which is like the fucking devil coming to life, just marketing. I just hate it. Because to me, marketing is like you market something. You put something on the market. It's like, this is what it is. This is what it does. This is why I think that my product is useful to you. Do you want to buy it? And that's it. Okay. But somehow, somebody during that era of the 60s and 70s was like, no, we can actually trick people subliminally into buying a product or a service or even information without actually it being true. We can do that because we know a lot about psychology now. We have a lot of information, and we know how to manipulate people into believing things that they wouldn't believe otherwise if it was told to them in an objective way. And they do this with advertisement, and they do this with information now, and they became really fucking good at it. And because of the spread of information and the amount of the quickness with which you can get information whenever you want, every day, all day, for the rest of your life, it's like, it's too much. It's too much noise. So you end up just not understanding what the fuck you're listening to, but still getting the information, and your brain is still getting, like, it's still registering the information subliminally. If you don't actually listen to it and you just watch it every day, all day, your brain is only registering the subliminal stuff, because you don't have to actively think about it. Your eyes just watch it, and your ears just listen to it, and your brain just registers stuff, and it's like, oh, this is what it is. Okay, and then later on something happens, and that memory comes up, and you think it's your own opinion. It's not. Okay, again, this sounds like fucking like it's sorcery of some kind. It is, it's just psychology. And talk to any psychologist, and just look at any book about communication and manipulation, and it's real. You've never been manipulated in your life. You've never manipulated anybody else in your life. Anyway, well, as it always happens, I'm rambling. So, I was trying to go in a chronological order, but it's fucking impossible with this situation. So anyway, the first lockdown goes by, and, advertisements, oh, the environment is better. Oh, we're all in this together. Everything will be good. People singing on balconies and shit, Bella Ciao, and all that. Yes, and, it's like there are some Italians out there who, like, actually probably see that period as, like, this overwhelming coming together of our country to save one another. Like, no, nobody gave a shit about anybody else. You only listened to the rules because the police was enforcing it on you. Stop trying to pretend you gave a fuck about anybody else. You never did, and it's okay. It's not your responsibility to care for everybody else. It's okay, because this is what happens when you try to care for everybody else in the world. This is what happens right here. Okay? So it's not healthy. You should care for your families and friends, and if you want to do some voluntary work and try to be the best person that you can and help as many people as you can, be my guest. Okay? You're an awesome person, and keep doing it. But that's not how everybody else should be, because otherwise nothing else gets done. And we're all just focusing on one thing that cannot be stopped, which is death. Okay? And most of us don't really know how to do it. And politicians don't know how to do it, and they don't care how to do it. No matter what you believe. It's like, if you snap out of it for a second and you look back at politics in your country, you will realize they don't give a fuck about you. So, first lockdown went by, summer came, and we all were fucking psychologically relieved, and everybody would just wanted to have fun, and everybody just wanted to just not think about it, because it was so traumatic for all of us. Even people like me that realized the bullshit that was going on is still traumatic, because you're still being forced home, and I was just walking in the woods behind my house, and I was lucky to live near the woods because I like it, and I just went hiking every day. But it's like I lived at the time in a very, very small town. Like, I swear, must be like 1,000, 2,000 people. I'm not really good at math, but it's like I think that's what it is. Very small town, up in the hills, and I never saw the police in my town, ever. And I went for a walk in my town, like a few hundred meters from my house, just walking around in a circle, and the fucking police showed up every time, and they told me to wear a mask. I was alone in the street, and they went by, hello sir, why don't you have a mask on? It's like, why the fuck should I? I'm alone in the street. What can happen? But at the time, they told us that the fear was, the reason that people shouldn't go out of their houses, it wasn't because you're going to spread the virus into the air. It's because you might actually go to someone that you know and spread the virus to them. So it's like you can't see your friends, even though they're your friends, and you should make that decision, and they should make the decision of letting you inside their house, because it's a private household and it's private people. It's fucking privacy. It's your body. It's your property. It's their property. Like, nobody should get to decide who the fuck you go and meet. Okay? So that was the fear. And for a time, they actually had a rule that you couldn't go 200 meters away from your house, or you would get fined. You realize how much is 200 meters? That's like a couple blocks, okay, in America. Like, just, I don't fucking know. You fucking people with the fucking, whatever you call it, what do you call it, empirical measures, or whatever, just fucking stop it. Just convert, please. Every time, inches, feet, hands, hair, whatever the fuck you measure things with, just use meters, please. It's so much easier. Just do it. I've been waiting for you guys to just fucking do it. Oh, it's just a couple blocks. Well, how much is that? Oh, like 20 yards. How much is that? Oh, like 200 feet. How much is that? Like 400 toenails. Just fucking say 200 meters, man. Like a meter is 100 centimeters, which is 1,000 millimeters. That's science, man. You know. Anyway, that's what it was. So I was just go and walk by myself. Nobody else was around. And usually it was a small town. Nobody else was around walking anyway, but especially in that time. And the police just stopped me. Why are you not wearing a mask? It's like, oh, I don't have any. It's like, oh, here you go. And they just gave me the mask. And I would have to put it on in front of them. And then they would just drive away. And then I would just take it off because it's fucking stupid to wear a mask by yourself outside. Because it doesn't make any fucking sense. It's like going outside with an umbrella on a sunny day. It doesn't make it, you can do it, but it doesn't make any fucking sense. Okay? And if I ask you why and you tell me, well, it might rain and it's the middle of July, I'm going to call you a fucking idiot. Now, you can still do it, but that's what you are. So I just reserved to just going into the woods so nobody would just give me shit. And I would still see the police sometimes in the fucking woods just driving around. That's how much they were not caring for our, safety. That they were just nothing to do, just driving around in the woods, waiting for some folk to just walk by himself without a mask on so they could just tell me to wear a mask instead of, I don't know, just looking for criminals, maybe. Like everybody's locked down, nobody's around. Criminals are free to just meet and organize because nobody's fucking around. And it's easier for them, I guess. So that's how the first lockdown went. So summer went by. I was so happy to see my girlfriend again. I actually broke the rules. I went to see my girlfriend when I shouldn't. Because, there were some exceptions like, oh, you can move outside of your town if, for work, for job reasons and for health reasons, blah, blah, blah. And I was working as a delivery guy. So eventually I was like, oh, I can actually move outside of my house. At first it was like nobody can move out of their house for no reason, maybe health reasons. And after a few weeks, it was like, okay, you can move around for these reasons, for your work, or for, if you have to go to the hospital and stuff like that. So I actually went to my girlfriend's house, even though, technically I shouldn't have. I don't remember why, but I couldn't. But I still did because fuck you. I want to see my girlfriend, and because I love her and I want to see her because I miss her. And I don't give a fuck about how scared you are about a virus. If I want to see my girlfriend, I'll fucking see her. Okay? But what if she catches the COVID? It's my fucking business and it's her fucking business. It's not your business. But what if her grandmother catches COVID and then I catch COVID? It's like, well, fucking kill yourself then. Because that's what's going to happen, baby. You're going to die. Yeah, I realized that was... that sounded very ignorant. Well, we going to die someday. So I don't care. I catch 1,000 COVIDs. I don't care. But that's what I did. And in the summer, we all just kind of chilled. But still, the media was coming at us. They started talking about a second wave almost immediately. They started blaming the immigrants for bringing COVID. In like 1,000 immigrants bringing COVID into Italy, right? And they started blaming the young people for going into disco clubs and having fun, which you shouldn't do because there's a pandemic and people are dying and you should never have fun in your life because that's the best way to live it. Just don't have fun. Keep thinking about death all day. Jesus. Don't you love your grandmother so much that you're not going to live your life because she might die at 90 instead of 91? What kind of heartless person are you? Anyway, except the fact that the average age of people that die from COVID is actually higher than the average death age of people in general in Italy. But that's just the data. It doesn't matter, right? And you can just look it up. I'm not here to fucking divulge statistics. I'm just telling you what I know. So August and September came by of 2020, and they started talking about schools. It's like, oh yes, let's reopen the schools, but we might have to close everything down again because the schools. So that's what happened. Basically, the way it went down was a month before they did what they wanted to do, they would just kind of warn us about it by saying like, oh, we don't know, this might happen, and then it just did. So that's how it went down. And of course, we had all the fucking decrees coming out. By the way, this is going to be a longer episode, as you might have noticed, because it's a fucking long subject, and we could talk about this for hours, because there's so many aspects of it. And this is I'm just like making a recap of what happened. I'm not even talking about all the different aspects of like the economical aspects and the social aspects of it. Yeah, and so those implications. So that's what happened, and they closed everything down again in autumn. Now, we had some protests, and I think they were just made up because it was just a couple of days. They happened in Florence, Naples, and Milan, and they were pretty not violent, like as opposed to any other fucking protest in Italy. Like just a couple of trash cans on fire, or just maybe a car, and some folks just throwing some bottles. That is the level of violence that we have in Italy. Like no guns, no knives, no people dying or stuff like that. It's just, some vandals, just vandalism. And so that was it, because basically the protest was starting as people not wanting to close their businesses. That was the protest, and somehow like 18-year-olds vandals just got into the protest and started burning shit up, right? Because that's what happens. That's what 18-year-olds do, right? They're like, oh, these businesses don't want to stay closed. They want to open up. Yeah, let's support them by burning shit down, right? That's what 18-year-olds do. Yeah. And they all cover their face, too, very carefully. And they're never caught. They're never caught. So kind of a movement started called Stay Open, something like that it would translate. It was just businesses trying to be like, fuck it, I'll open anyway, because I'm failing, so who gives a shit? I'll just open anyway, because I don't care, But it's like, maybe if we do it, if all of us do it, maybe they'll change the law and we can stay open. It didn't really work out that well. And winter went by, and they were like, we're going to stay home at Christmas and New Year's so we can have a happy Easter, or whatever the fuck they said. So they were like, we're going to sacrifice now. We're doing these sacrifices now, even though this is December and this started in March of 2020. So this is already 9 months of fucking suffering and psychological warfare on us. But it's like, no, just make a little bit more sacrifice. It's going to be fine. Just come on, man. Your grandparents fought a war for us, remember? And we got all the money and they died. Yeah, why don't you do that? Why don't you just stay home and watch Netflix now? And don't worry about it. Just trust us. Like your great-grandparents did, and then they died for us. So we can just split some land and some money. Right? So that's what happened. And then this year came by, and we had the third wave in Italy, I guess. But then the vaccinations happened. And the campaign started, and they started vaccinating older people and health workers, and it was the same plan pretty much everywhere else. And they told us, the vaccine is gonna set us free, and nothing to worry about. And the conspiracy theorists were like, no, this shit is not good because the vaccine is not actually a vaccine. It's not been proven yet. It's been developed in 3 to 6 months. It's not safe. And they're trying to divide the population into vaccinated and not vaccinated. And people were like, what? That's not true. Alex Jones. Stupid. David Icke, he's fucking crazy. Reptilians. Flat Earth, bro. Ah ha ha ha. Science rules. That's what those were the comments. Just whatever, Facebook. You learned, did you graduate it on Facebook? Ah ha ha ha. Those were basically comments on it. And what happened? Can anybody tell me what the fuck happened with the vaccine? Huh? What? Oh, just 70 to 80% of the people got vaccinated and that was it? And now we're all free to live our lives normally again? No. What a fucking shock, right? What a fucking shock. The vaccine works for everybody that takes it, and we're all safer because of it. No? Jesus Christ. I would have never seen that coming. I was going to get my 4th dose in, but I think I'm changing my mind now. Yeah, I know this is I'm being kind of an asshole. I know this is a very divisive subject. Because when you do something and you inject something in your body, it's very hard to be like, you know what? I think I shouldn't have done it. It's very hard to do that. Because once you take that step, you have to commit, right? Psychologically, you can't admit that you were wrong and that it was actually useless. And in fact, it was dangerous to do. And you're contributing to making this a more tyrannical world. It's your responsibility as well. But I don't, I make fun of it, but I don't want to give you shit for it because this is hard for everybody. And unless you're an asshole and you did it because you want to feel better than everybody else and you want to shit over other people, then go fuck yourself. But if you just did it because you felt scared or because you felt like you were actually doing a good thing, that's fine. Like, I don't judge you that much because it's like, the consequences of your actions are still there, but you didn't want to do it. Like that, it wasn't your intentions. So that's fine. That's fine. You will eventually get it. Hopefully. So as long as you don't become an ally of the fucking government and you just become like living propaganda and stop thinking with your brain, then, you just become like this brain worm. Like I don't know, you just repeat stuff that you don't think and you just say things, you just shit out of your mouth, then you're just lost. You're gone. You're on their side now, and there's nothing nobody can do to help you. But I think most of you are just good people, and they were just trying to do the right thing, and they still are. So this is my message of peace to all of you. You would label me as a no-vax or a conspiracy theorist, I guess, or whatever, but just don't, please. I'm just a person just like you, and I don't want to label you anything that nobody could. I don't want to use any labels. Every one of you is different, even though you all did the same thing, but you're all different. You all have your reasons, and if you're trying to be a good person out there, just keep trying. I guess that's what I'm trying to do, So spring of 2021 went by and we got on it wasn't lockdown anymore. It was just zones. So it was like red, orange and yellow. And then when the summer was coming by, they introduced the white zone. And the white zone, I love saying white, like the Southerners in America, white, like HWHITE, like white. I love it. So the white zones, I just can't stop. The white zones, they were like, if there's 50 over 100,000 people, like positive cases, then you're in the white zone, and you're pretty much back to normal life almost. And we were like, okay, that's fine, because eventually all of Italy in the summer is going to be white, and then a white zone. Uh, so it's fine. Like, that should be the end of it, right? By summer, most of us will be vaccinated. No cases, like, there's going to be very few cases. We can take this under control. It's going to be fine. Lo and behold, the fucking passport comes in, the green pass, that nobody else calls the green pass, but besides Italy, but whatever, because it's called the European COVID passport, but we call it the green pass. You might have any idea why it's called the green pass? You might be like, oh, it's like it's green. When it's green, you go, so you can pass. It's like, okay, fine, but have you heard any other type of propaganda in the last couple of years besides the health issues, the health risks of the virus? Something about climate change, something about green economy. Ever heard of that? Now, when you give people a passport to utilize, like, to classify them as a Class A citizen, as opposed to somebody who doesn't have the passport being a Class B citizen, and then you tell people that having a green economy and fighting climate change, which is just as useful as fighting a virus, so not useful. Like, not the way they're doing it anyway, by making everybody responsible for it. That's not how it works, and that's just not the reality of it. If you think you're responsible for climate change because you're driving a car that consumes too much CO2, or just you take too many airplane flights or whatever, you're just out of your fucking mind. Like, you don't realize how small you are compared to the world. And that there's so much worse shit happening to the earth by very few people that is making so much more damage than what you and everybody you know will ever make in your life. And they're doing it every day. And they have been for the past, 50 years. So you want to be more self-conscious about climate, and just because it's not even about, like, they took the only topic that doesn't make a fucking sense, which is climate change. It's like, what about deforestation? What about the oceans being polluted with fucking plastic, and just some people fucking up entire ecosystems? What about that? I don't give a fuck if it's a little bit hotter in the winter. And it's like, the glaciers are melting. So we have water instead of ice. So what? Are the glaciers that important? Who the fuck is using those pieces of ice? If they become water, what's the worst thing that can happen? You know what? Honestly, I never looked into it. I'm just going by logic. But just by what I saw with the COVID thing, I'm trying to apply that to everything else. And I saw a lot of propaganda about climate change. I saw this fucking Greta Thunberg face, which, I don't know, she doesn't look like a kid. That lady looks, I don't know, she looks weird. But that's ignorant. She looks weird. I don't trust her. She got that Asperger's syndrome. I don't know what it is, but it ain't look pretty. So I don't trust her. I like my women like I like my climate. Hot. Anyway. So yeah, I see a lot of propaganda. Where I see propaganda and emotional propaganda and not informational propaganda, it's kind of a red flag for me. Like, this might not be the way they're telling it. It doesn't mean that it's not necessarily true. It just like COVID. I used to think for a while that it just doesn't exist. And now I'm like, could very well exist. Like, there are other coronaviruses, and this could just be one of them, and that's fine. It's just the way it's handled It was just an instrument to them. So climate change could very well be true, because climate change happened on Earth many, many times. And it's just a cycle, as far as I know. But the way it's instrumentalized to make you feel bad about the way you live your life, and to make you change your life, while the people who are actually causing the climate change and running the world don't give a fuck about changing anything that they do, and they keep getting worse and worse. Now you have to change what type of car you drive, because that makes you a better citizen. And not only that, we are going to classify you, and we're going to ask you to prove to us that you are a better citizen. You have to prove to us your obedience. And that's what the Green Pass is for. So basically, what the vaccination is, and the way and the reason why it's being pushed so much, like in Italy now, we must have like 85 to 90% of people vaccinated. They're still pushing on it. Do you see any fucking reason for this? Like the recommended vaccination percentage for the population based on a number, like I don't know in English what it's called, like the RT of COVID, when it wasn't being stopped, like the health authorities in Italy said that it was like 70%, 75%. There's 85 to 90% of people vaccinated with multiple doses in Italy, okay, of all ages. Why hasn't this stopped yet? Why? You know? And if you're like, well, because the cases are still rising, there's still danger, okay, then what the fuck was the vaccine for? 2 doses, 3 doses, everybody from 12 up to 90 plus years old got the vaccine. There's just like 10% of the population that didn't get it. Okay. And they might have not gotten it because they got COVID. They probably did, you know, and they might just be healthy individuals, you know, like among that 10%, there are probably very few people who are at actual risk of spreading the virus. But even if all those 10% got the virus, you know, at the same time, it would actually be better. Like if 90% of the people is protected, the virus could not spread. It's just physically impossible. So why is it? If it is, it's not. But if you believe it is, why? The only reason is because the vaccine doesn't work. There's no other explanation. And if you believe otherwise, you have been sold this fairy tale. And please wake up. Please. I'm not telling you to believe the earth is flat. I'm just telling you, just go with your instinct. Think logically about what the fuck makes sense and what doesn't. Based on your decisions, even. Again, this is the reason why people that got vaccinated have a hard time being like, you know, I don't think this is working. Because they did it. They injected their bodies with something that they didn't know anything of, because they needed it to work. And they needed it, you know, especially since August when they introduced the Green Pass. Before it was like, no, I just did it because I feel like it's the right thing to do. Because you didn't actually need a vaccine passport to live. Okay, so I understand those people, but everybody after that, after August, they just did it because they needed to survive. They were like, I need a job, I need to have a social life, I just need to get vaccinated because I can't pay for a test every 2 days because that's fucking ridiculous and it's a huge amount of money. So basically, what I think is happening right now, and I'll close on this, my view is the vaccination is an invasion of your personal property, which is your body. What they want you to do is prove your obedience by letting them invade your body. Even if you think the vaccine is useful, that's not the thing. The thing is that they're forcing it on you. It's not an emergency anymore. They're not vaccinating the health workers and the old people and the fragile people. They want to vaccinate every fucking body. So I'm talking to you. I'm talking about everybody else. Okay? that don't need to get vaccinated. Even if it does work, they don't really need it because there's something called a natural immunity. Most of you already got COVID. Okay. Some of you allegedly more than once. I don't know if that can happen, but I heard that it can. So I'm talking to all of you. They want to invade. They want to let you know that they can do whatever the fuck they want with your body. That it's not your body, it's their property. And you are letting them do this to you. This is what they want to do with the vaccine. With the green pass or the COVID passport, what they want to do is for you to prove your obedience on a regular schedule. Okay? And this is what the doses are for. And this is why the vaccine doesn't actually work, because you can't do multiple doses just like this, just in a matter of a few months with an actual vaccine, because you will kill yourself. Okay? So they're injecting fucking bullshit in your body. Now, I don't know if it's like the conspiracies say, if it's fucking nanotechnology or where, I don't care. It could be water. I don't care. They're just doing it because they want you to prove to them that you are going to obey, that you're going to comply. And by being vaccinated, you're already giving enough proof. They just want to make sure that you will keep obeying. And this is what the COVID passport is for. They are enslaving you mentally. You think you're free. They are enslaving you. It's all in your head. It's all in your head. It's always in your head. Okay? Their power exists because you give it to them. It's just people, folks. It's just people. I understand it's fucking hard. I understand you feel alone because nobody else around you gives a fuck. But this is the reality of it. It's just a handful of people governing millions, hundreds of millions of people listening to like one old demential guy. I'm talking about America, of course. You know, it's fucking ridiculous if you think about it. So the vaccines are there to invade your property, to let you know that they can fuck with you anytime they want. The COVID passport is there to prove that you will keep obeying every once in a while. And now it comes to us. Every one of us who don't want to believe this shit, who don't want to obey, what they did was, you don't want to obey? Well, you fucking will. Because you will either never get the passport, so you will stop living. You won't be able to work. If you don't work, you won't make money. If you don't make money and you don't have a job, you won't have a house. If you don't have a social life, you will never meet anybody. You will never marry anybody. You will never have a family. You will die alone and poor. So you can be happy to not obey. You will just die a horrible death and you will live a horrible life. But it's up to you, right? Now, if you don't want to get the vaccine, so if you don't want us to invade your body, what you will do is pay us a tax. You will pay every 2 days, 2 to 3 days, you will pay a COVID test so we can still make our money. You will pay a COVID test to survive in this society, to have a job, to have money, and to have everything else. You will have to pay, in our country, is $15. A rapid antigenic test for 48 hours of validation is $15. That's $60 a week. That is $240 a month. That's a lot. That is a lot. That is like 1/6 of an average low to medium income. Okay. Well, actually low right now, like 1,200 to 1,300 euros. It's pretty regular as an income, for any job. Because of inflation, the salaries went up a little bit. It's still a huge fucking part. And nobody can afford that. Unless you're rich. Nobody can fucking do that. So people are actually cutting off their salaries just to keep working. They're paying a tax to keep living. So these are the choices they're giving you, folks. You either let us fuck with you as much as we want, and you will keep happily obeying and prove to us that you will happily obey. And this is complete invasion of your privacy and your body and your mind. And if you're strong enough to resist this, you will still have to pay us in order to keep surviving. This is what they're doing, folks. And this will not stop. This is not like 9/11. This is 9/11 times 1,000. Okay? 9/11, there was a panic for a couple of years, and then all those fucking stupid measures that would still follow in the airplanes and for securities in the museums and stuff, you know? Like, I'm gonna go to the fucking Natural History Museum in my hometown and bring a fucking gun and kill everybody there, right? Me, a white Italian young man. I'm just gonna do that, right? So if you think about 9/11, you will realize how many of those measures that were introduced do not do anything to stop any kind of terrorist attacks, because they are the terrorists. Now, I know I'm going into conspiracy mode a little bit here for some of you, but listen to me. They are the terrorists. Anytime that terrorism was convenient to them, it came out. These are the three pillars of the new tyrannical world order. I'm going to use big words here, okay? Climate change, terrorism, and health crisis, pandemics. These are the three pillars for the last 20 plus years that were used against us. Now, this is not to say that there are not terrorist, Islamic groups out there that are extremists, right? And some of them actually want to see the world burn. There are very few, though. And we have the fucking power to beat them all if we wanted. This is not to say that viruses don't exist and that we shouldn't somehow collectively, or just the medical world shouldn't do the best they can to research these things and try to give us the best solutions to prevent this from, to prevent pandemics from happening. But they will happen, and they have for thousands of years, and we survived. Climate change, we should all be more worried about our Mother Earth, okay, about nature. We were in contact with nature for many, many, many thousands of years of our existence as human beings, and we should not forget that, and we should give a lot of importance to the ecosystems around us, because they keep us alive. Because we are, whether we want it or not, we are in symbiosis with everything else in nature, and we should respect that, and we should respect every aspect of nature that we can in our small lives and in the bigger picture. Problem is, in the bigger picture, the people that could influence Earth the most are doing bad things to it because they don't give a fuck, because they rather have money and land and gold and stocks and power than just have a nice environment to live in, because they are fucking psychopaths, and psychopaths are not empathic. They don't give a fuck. They hate themselves, and they will burn everything to the ground before they die. This is what they are. These people hate themselves. They have to be surrounded by fake, non-valuable things in order to keep the fantasy going. And we are all supporting their fantasies. We are all giving them power. We are all accepting this. And, most of it we can't escape. You can't stop buying gasoline and keep financing all the petrol and oil companies, that there's wars about. There have been wars about fucking oil. Okay, people died a horrible death because somebody had to make a little bit more money. and somebody wanted this piece of land and that piece of land and this oil company and that oil company. There is an industry that has been voluntarily killing people for dozens of years. The cigarette industry, the tobacco industry has been voluntarily in front of your fucking eyes killing all of you. And nobody gives a fuck. Because their products are so fucking... they create so much dependence that you will happily kill yourself with their product as long as they get to keep the profits. This is fucked up. Right? But these are all the same few people. They're destroying plants. They're destroying our nutrition. They're putting shit in our food to keep spoiling us and to keep us dependent on the food and keep buying and buying and buying. They want obedient, I'm going to quote George Carlin here, they want obedient workers and they want happy consumers. Professional consumers and obedient workers. This is what they want because this is what makes them the most profit and this is what gives them the most power and gives them the least responsibility that they can have over anything. They could not give a fuck about how the world is doing. The world could explode tomorrow as far as they care. As long as they get to keep living their fucking fantasy and they can keep living in their separate world, they don't care if everything else burned down because they are narcissistic psychopaths. And I don't have any names and last names here, but you know who I'm talking about. It's not your neighbor. It's not you. It's not your boss at work. It's not the group that they tell you to hate. You know who it is. Okay? These are the 3 pillars of the New World Order. And it's working just fine for them. And it's dividing us and it's dividing us into all these groups that are just fucking bananas. And they're very extremist groups. Instead of just being human and caring for one another, which doesn't mean being just responsible for everybody else, just in our day-to-day life. The internet helped us a lot with connecting with everybody else around the world, and that's awesome. And there's so much information, and every one of us can be more intelligent every day and know more things every day. But that it's not that it's still hard to do. Just because you have a lot of information on your hands doesn't mean that you're actually learning anything new every day, because that takes effort. Even if the information is quick and it's at your disposal at all times, it still takes time and effort to learn something, right? But we now have that possibility. So this is the end, I guess. We will see what happens. I don't think this is going to go well. I think this is going to become a very different thing that every one of us can imagine or has imagined in the past. If you think about it, think about how you felt on March 2021 about the whole situation. And think about how much things have changed. How much things have shifted. The focus has shifted from one thing to another over and over again. And think about what the actual end goal could be here. And then act accordingly in your own life. But no matter what, even though it's hard, stay positive. Be yourself. Question everything. Love whoever is near you. And do good to people who might need it. Because that's good karma. Not because you have any social credits. Just because it's good karma. Just do something good every once in a while for somebody else. And if you don't feel like it, fuck it. Just be a good person anyway. Just be good to yourself. Don't hate yourself. Remember, this is mostly psychological warfare. If you don't let them get inside your head, they lose. So, some of you might think I'm just crazy, I'm just ignorant, whatever. Think whatever you want. Um, I honestly don't care anymore. Like, I used to care that if everybody thinks like me, then things will be great. No, that's impossible and that's selfish. So I don't care what you think. Just don't be an asshole. Okay? So this was all for this longer, much longer podcast. Of course, this is a very touchy subject, and there's many areas that we can touch about this, and I love to talk about it. So if anyone wants, I'm sure if somebody listens to this, they will share their opinion, and maybe I'll find something useful to comment on the next on a later episode. So bye everybody.